thoughts, and it's open mic of sorts, looking at the top stories in the papers.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Honorable Mbui completely on the education, the mess in the education sector. Mm-hmm. And when you look at countries, because we are equated a lot with the Southeast Asian countries, because these countries were at the same development level with us in the early 60s. And for instance, South Korea came to Kenya, looked at our development plan of the time, adopted it, and used it to grow. So what did South Korea do that we didn't do? They dealt with their governance. They dealt with the culture of implementation. So, and how have they then become these leaders on the world economy? They have invested in education. Mm-hmm. They have invested in health. They've also invested in technology, because this is the bedrock of development. So what we are seeing really is alarming, because the Kenya Kwanza regime is very incompetently undermining the foundation, not of the present, that caused the Gen Z to come out onto the street because of the pain Kenyans are feeling now, mm-hmm. but they are undermining the foundations of our future growth. Because due to this untested model, they were advised, the education stakeholders advised from the Uhuru-Ruto, because you have to remember this process of introduction of CBC started then. Mm. And they came with this big rush of we must change, we must implement, and they were told, hold on, there is a way you do education reforms. One, you design. Two, you get the stakeholders to agree. Then you pilot. Now, when they did a small pilot, the pilot showed a lot of gaps in the implementation. But instead of stepping back to fix the gaps, they then, you can remember CSs were being turned over in Education Ministry to implement by force. Mm-hmm. So, number one is we have the Uhuru-Ruto and now the continuation of this really failed regime. Because when you look at William Ruto, you look at Uhuru Kenyatta, they have failed to understand what the country needs. So what they did is they've entered into the education sector and are roughshod implementing a system that is undermining the foundation of teachers to teach, the foundation of learners to learn, and they are ignoring the gaps, because back to governance. A report by TSC says there's major accountability gaps in the education sector. Ethnicity, there's sex for marks, there's political interference, there's financial mismanagement, there's shortage of teachers, lack of professionalism, mental health issues, dissertation, immoral behavior. These are software issues mm-hmm. that need to be dealt with, so that the money, the 27% of the budget that we put in there can work for us. Right. So aside from inefficiency, there is a failure to deal with the governance foundations of the education sector. Add to that IMF privatization. Because what the big struggle that we are having is that IMF has come with monetary, fiscal, and even developmental recommendations that are not in our interest. Because the IMF model is actually protects their investors. It's really geared towards the Western world to benefit as much from our resources as possible and leave us just where we are. Linked to that, there is the corruption. So the Kenya Kwanza regime has failed Kenya, is continuing to fail, has ignored the easy wins, which is governance. Fixing governance doesn't take huge additional allocations. So what would we need to do is listen to the stakeholders, so that we don't put our children, a whole generation. Linked to that, there is something on the EACC, which is an accountability issue, that the JLAC Committee of Parliament is seeking to use Parliament to remove the chair of mm-hmm. the EACC, mm-hmm. Because there is a standoff between the EACC and the DPP. because the DPP operates like a personal secretary to the president and has been collapsing cases on corruption so that those people who are being...
Is that what they're trying
charged
sort
can
out?
Then get public office?
Is that what they're trying to sort out, or it's just your inference?
No, I think it's very clear. They have said they are putting in a provision to require the chair of the EACC to have the credentials similar to a high court.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes. So where did this come from? And why does it come midstream? What is the failure that they are trying to fix? And why are they then alluding that it will be implemented immediately? What is the gap that is here? And why does it come at a time when we have seen that the EACC has refused to withdraw corruption cases where the DPP has failed? So we are seeing Parliament, the present company notwithstanding, because it's not all of Parliament, but too many in Parliament have agreed to do the bidding of the executive. And in fact, not just the executive, of the president.
All right.
Because that is the person who holds the reins of power right now.
All right. Even though on